And this came to pass many, many years ago when the world was a very different place. Hello, my name is Dakore Egbuson Akande, and we're going to be reading a story called Aniowo. A wealthy man had 3 daughters, the third and youngest of which, by her actions, was the most caring towards him. One day, he decided to test them to see if they truly loved him as he felt they should. He asked the first, "How much do you love me, daughter?" "As much as I love my life," she replied, and he was pleased. He asked the second, "How much do you love me, daughter?" "More than the whole world," she said, and he was content. He asked the third, the youngest, "And you, daughter, how much do you love me?" "Father," she replied softly, "surely the truth of love is not in words, but it is in actions. However, if it is your wish, I love you as much as food needs herbs and spices when it's being prepared." Enraged, he shouted, "You do not love me at all. Get out of my house." He had his guards throw her out immediately, with no money, with no belongings, and they shut the door in her face. Downhearted, confused, and still in shock at this sudden turn of events, she made her way out of the city, following the road that led to Obudu Mountains. After a while, she came to a small stream. She was scared that the fine clothes she was wearing may draw unwanted attention from thieves that may be hiding along the path. So she cut some reeds and made a long coat and hat with them to cover herself completely from head to toe. She walked on for a very long time until she came to the palace of the king of another city. She knocked at the big door, which was answered by a guard. "I have nowhere to go," she pleaded, holding back her tears. "I will work for food and for a roof over my head." The guard felt sorry for her and sent her to the kitchens, where she was made to pound yam and wash dishes. She stayed at the palace and did any task she was asked to do. She was a hard worker and kind, and because of this, she quickly became good friends with some of the other servants who worked in the kitchen. Since she always wore the hat and cloak of reeds that she had made by the small stream, and as she had never told anyone her name, they called her Aniowo, which translated from Calabar language into English means who. A week-long festival was to be held at the palace. Many dignitaries were going to come from far and wide. There would be feasting and dancing all day and all night. It was such a special event that every servant in the palace was allowed to go and witness the gathering. One evening, her friends were ready and eager to go to see the party in the great hall. They told Aniowo to ready herself quickly and follow them. But she gave the excuse that she was tired and stayed behind while her friends rushed to the hall to observe the festivities. As soon as they had gone, Aniowo removed her hat and cloak made of reeds, bathed, and put on the fine clothes she was wearing when she was thrown out of her father's house. She had hidden these the moment she arrived at the palace, and she hid them very well. Ready, she went to the great hall. Everyone was happy. The music was pulsing and many were dancing. As she entered, people turned to stare. She was easily the finest dressed and most beautiful young woman in the hall. As soon as her master's son, the prince, saw her, he fell in love. He invited her immediately to sit at his table. From that moment, he did not have eyes for anyone else. Before the festivities were over for that night, Aniowo crept discreetly back to her room. When her friends later returned, Aniowo pretended to be asleep. The next morning, they told her about the mysterious, beautiful girl they had seen and that the prince had obviously fallen in love with her. "I would have loved to have seen her," said Aniowo dreamily. "There's another feast tonight. Perhaps the lady will be there," one friend told her. "You should come and see her for yourself," supposed another excitedly. But every night, Aniowo did exactly the same thing. She pretended to be tired, so she didn't go with her friends to the party. But when her friends had gone, she took off her hat and her cloak made of reeds, bathed, put her fine clothes on, and went to the great hall. The prince talked with no one but her. Before the festivities were over for that night, Aniowo crept into her room discreetly. On the last night of the festival, Aniowo entered the great hall. Immediately, the prince walked towards her and invited her to sit next to him at his table. And as he did every night, he asked what her name was and where she was from. And she did every night not tell him. "Take this ring and wear it as a token of my love. If I never see you again, I will die," he said desperately. Then, as every night before, Aniowo, making sure no one was watching, carefully left the great hall and went back to her room. The following morning, as they were cleaning the kitchen, one of her friends said, "Oh, Aniowo, the festival is over and you didn't see the beautiful, mysterious lady even once." Another, "I hear the prince has sent men out all over the land to try and find her. He's becoming quite ill from a broken heart." This was true. The more time passed without her being found, the more desperate and ill the prince became, until he was so weak he could not even leave his bed. Weeks passed. "Make some food for the prince," barked the head servant to the cook. "He is gravely ill because of the love he has for the lady who seems to have disappeared from the face of the earth." The cook immediately followed the order. "Please, let me make the food," Aniowo asked the cook. Saying no at first, the cook finally allowed Aniowo to make the meal, which was pounded yam and edikang kong soup. Carefully, and without anyone noticing, she put the ring into the pounded yam portion she had prepared, and the head servant took it to the prince. The prince was picking at his food indifferently when he came across the ring. "Who made this food?" he questioned urgently. "Send for the cook." The cook entered the prince's room. "Did you cook this?" he inquired. "Yes, O prince," responded the cook. "You did not," shouted the prince. "Tell me who did, and no harm will come to you." "It was Aniowo," bleated the cook with some relief. "Send her here," said the prince, almost overflowing with excitement. Aniowo entered the prince's room. "Did you make my food?" asked the prince. "Yes, sir," replied Aniowo, her head bent forward slightly to hide her face. "Where did you get this ring?" he inquired. "From the one who gave it to me," said Aniowo. "And who are you?" asked the prince. "I'll show you," said Aniowo, and she removed her hat and her cloak made of reeds, underneath which she wore her fine clothes. The prince was overjoyed, and his recovery was almost immediate. They were to be married before the month's end. It was to be a very big wedding. Guests from far and wide were asked to attend, and Anyowo made sure her father was invited. Before the wedding feast, she went to the kitchen and ordered the cook to prepare all the food without any herbs or spices. The food will taste awful, objected the cook, but she did as she was told. Anyowo was careful to make sure her father didn't see her too clearly. As the guests sat down to eat, each began to complain about the food. Anyowo's father himself tried first one dish, then another, when after that, in front of all those at his table, he burst into tears. "What is the matter?" asked those at his table. "I shall tell you," he said, through his crying, and every guest listened. "I had 3 daughters, and I asked each how much they loved me. The firstborn and the second gave what I thought at the time were satisfactory answers. But the third, who proved her love for me daily by her actions, said she loved me as much as food needs herbs and spices when it is being prepared. I did not think she loved me enough, so I had her thrown out of my house. But today, here, eating this tasteless food, I have realized she loved me most of all. It has been many months since this happened. She may be lost to me forever, for all I know." At this, Anyowo stood up and said, "I am not lost, father. I am here." She ran to her father and embraced him, and in that instant forgave him for his unkindness and lack of judgment. Her father was so relieved to see her that his tears of sadness turned immediately to tears of joy. He realized too that all his daughters loved him, and it had not been wise to expect them to put their feelings into just words. Fine food seasoned with herbs and spices was served. Everyone ate well and they were satisfied. The wedding party was a huge success. And the moral of the story is this: it matters only that love is true. It matters not the words used to describe it.